Good evening. My name is Bobette Mason. I'm the chair of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee. Today is October the 23rd, and this meeting is from 6 to 7 in person. It's the first floor of the North Conference Room at City Hall. I represent 2803 and 28704. So let the other members introduce themselves before we go further.
Oh, hi, my name is Sandra Frimpong. I represent 28805.
My name is Elizabeth Likas. I'm the vice chair. I'm an at-large member, and I reside in 28803.
My name is Jake Smith. I'm an at-large member residing in 28801.
I'm Dane Berriger, also an at-large member. I live downtown.
And we have two members, Elise Martyr and Joe Taylor, who are absent this evening because they're not feeling well, but they are on live stream with us. Mora and not Joe, Mora and Elise. That's who it is. Okay. So has everyone had a chance to look over the agenda? I mean, the approval of the draft meeting from September?
Yeah.
I need a motion for that.
I move we approve the minutes of the September 25th meeting.
Second.
A motion is on the floor and it's been seconded. Are there any questions? If not, all that approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any disapprove? We're good. Let's review the agenda for today's meeting. We have moved up. We'll have public comment, and after that, we'll go directly into new business, where we have guests in the house, and I would still like to say that we have Meredith and Christina from the city are here with us, and they keep us on task. Kim Roney is our liaison, and she will be here. She's probably listening right now, but she's on her way in. So we're just ready for that. So the public comments, if we can go on and start with that first.
That sounds good, Chair. And we have 5 people signed up to speak. Would you like me to pass you that list so you can see the order and their names?
Okay, can do that.
And I will, I'll be in charge of timekeeping. So we'll do just like at council meetings where public comment is for 3 minutes, and then you'll hear my timer go off.
So what I want to say is I think that this meeting is very, very, very important, and I will not be, we're not going to be as strategic. We'll give them a little more time because I want people to have the opportunity to express themselves, and I don't want anyone to leave here without understanding exactly what's going on. So we'll have clarity. So we'll start with Ms. Norma Baines. If you just come to the mic and you give your name, and we'd like to know what community you represent in our neighborhoods.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Norma Baines, and I'm the liaison for the Shiloh Community Association. And we came to this meeting so we could have some input about the flag lot that's the gentleman is going to represent and how we feel about it. And at this time, we do have property with a flag lot. We really do. But we want to make sure that the development in our neighborhood is affordable. I don't know how this will help the affordability of our neighborhood if there is a flag lot. I understand probably the buildings will be a little bit larger. And of course, if a home is larger, then it costs more money. So that is my comment about the flag lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Sophie Dixon?
Good afternoon. A little bit off course here because I wasn't sure how the meeting proceeds. We got involved with this officially when we were notified that we had a person asking to be on our agenda for our meeting to speak about this project. That's not our process, so there was no way to do it not that particular evening. So as a result of that, I would have sent a letter to the city council, and I'll just share with you that the verbiage of that letter. Dear Asheville City Council, the Shiloh Community Association has been approached by a developer, Barrett Belloc, who is the chair of the Asheville Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. He is interested in having a conversation with the Shiloh Association members about building backyard houses in the community. It has come to our attention that he is on the City Council agenda for October 24th. The Shiloh Association does not support a change of zoning for accessory dwelling units, ADU backyard housing. Thank you in advance for your support. And the real reason I wanted to come to, because it seems like we feel like we got a target on our back. Every time something wants to come in, even the opportunity zone or anything like that, we're not considered a neighborhood. We're considered an opportunity for somebody to come in to take advantage of properties and people in the community. And so we have to be very vigilant, and we are. And so that's why we're here today. So I wanted to hear something, because I haven't heard it officially explained by someone of the developers, and maybe, I don't know if I have a chance to come back, but after we hear how they present it, I'm just going on right now on base what I saw coming through email, and you know how that goes. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Rick Freeman?
Hi, my name is Rick Freeman. I live in Kenilworth Forest, not to be confused with Kenilworth. The mall is my neighbor, or the mostly dead mall these days. But I'm also the president of the Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods. My colleague Patrick will go into some of the details related to this. I think the point I want to make to NAC is that we need a comprehensive look at our UDO and the changes that are being made, and that's being driven through the missing middle housing effort, which has a position on that advisory board, and those findings are going to be published between now and the end of the year, and would be the perfect time to consider any changes having to do with cottage clusters, rather than working this thing as one unique thing all by itself that would then put pressure on that more comprehensive plan to drive new housing stock and more affordable housing stock. So let's not take it on one idea at a time. Let's pull together as a community and put it all together, get a lot of public input, and then deal with the zoning issues that come with that. So I would encourage NAC to send a message to City Council that while they did the right thing with flag lots, they should just delay this just the same way as they did flag lots. Thank you.
Mr. Patrick Gilbert?
Good afternoon, or good evening, committee members. I'm Patrick Gilbert. I'm the interim Vice President for Government Relations for the Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods. I'm also CAN's representative on the Missing Middle Housing Advisory Committee. Like Mr. Freeman said, CAN submitted a letter to the City Council last week, in which we strongly urged the Council to delay action on both the flag lot text amendments and the cottage cluster text amendments until after the missing middle housing report and recommendations are issued, so that staff and then ultimately the City Council can take those recommendations, the text amendments that Mr. Bialik is proposing, and any proposals that staff can come up with, and take a comprehensive look at the issue of affordable housing and providing a bigger mix of housing stock. And cottage clusters is one of the key components of missing middle housing. And the concern is that by reducing the minimum number of dwelling units required for a cottage cluster development from 5 to 2. And cottage clusters can go up to 15 dwelling units, that you can potentially take away 13 units of affordable housing. And so I think that rather than taking action on the cottage cluster text amendments now and sort of potentially eliminating that from the different components of missing middle housing, I think just doesn't make sense. And I think the council applied the right rationale in delaying action on the flag lot text amendments. And Can's position is that they should also apply the rationale on the cottage clusters. That way, if Mr. Bialik's text amendments have strong merit, they'll rise up with everything else and potentially be included in any changes that the city makes in terms of creating the opportunity, more opportunity for affordable housing and for a mix of housing stock. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barry? Are you going to speak, or did you want Stephanie from the city?
I think that's what I was going to ask you. After, yeah. Yeah, why don't we let her? After I present it, that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. He just signed in, so I didn't know. Okay, so I'm going to ask that if you have any questions after Stephanie from the city. Let me see, make sure I get your name right, last name right, Dahl?
Dahl.
Until she finishes her presentation, then we'll open it up and we will give, we'll have questions after she speaks and after Barry speaks, if that's okay.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Chair Mays and members of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee. My name is Steph Munson-Dahl, and I am the Planning and Urban Design Director for the City of Asheville, here to talk to you today about both text amendments that have been proposed by a citizen. I wanted to start off and let you know the status, just to start on the same playing ground here. If people hadn't heard that last Thursday at City Council's agenda briefing, as they prepared for this Tuesday's council agenda, they continued the flag lots item until January 23. That's the second council meeting in January. But cottage clusters is still on the agenda for tomorrow. A little bit about how any community member can propose UDO amendments. We have a section in our city's code that allows any resident of the city or owner that of any kind of property, any kind of equity in property, to suggest amendments to the city's zoning amendments or to zoning text, or also any kind of map amendments. So that is why you're seeing a proposal from someone who is not on staff. There's also ways for planning and zoning to lead an amendment, or city council to lead an amendment to the UDO as well. This is unusual, but it's not rare. So just in the past year, we did have a resident-led text amendment to allow cat cafes in West Asheville, if anybody remembers that. In the UDO, the process for any kind of text amendment is pretty small in scope. Really, all you have to do is submit a petition and go to Planning and Zoning Commission and then go to City Council. And what normally happens when we do a text amendment is that staff is leading it, and so there is a lot of engagement around that text amendment. We have usually appoint an advisory committee, and we have public meetings. It gets discussed several times, and it takes a much longer time for it to get to City Council. So the bottom line for all this is we want you to know that we're exploring ways to change the UDO so that there actually is some kind of public engagement process other than appearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission that makes sure that neighborhood input is included. I just want to point out that planning and zoning is a public meeting, as is City Council, the public hearing, but we understand that many of our residents are not regularly looking at those meeting agendas for things like this, for items like this. So today, I'm here not to talk about the merits or the technical aspects of the proposals as much as I am here to flex and leverage your stated purpose. And council chartered this group so that you could help facilitate conversations about how neighborhoods could be stronger and we could help build their capacities, but also to improve communication between neighborhoods and staff and, of course, city council. So that's what I'm focusing on today, although we will be talking about some of the technical pieces of these proposals. And these 3 questions here are generally what I'm looking for your feedback for, but I'm going to be asking for your feedback on any and all of this. You're going to have an opportunity to talk directly to the applicant and ask him questions so he can clarify what he's trying to accomplish here. So cottage developments. The purpose of cottage developments are to allow for additional housing choices, to create infill opportunities that usually are smaller in nature, and this is a type of housing that generally can be more affordable. Wanted to point out that in certain zoning districts in RS8 that we're going to be talking about, the houses that you would build on that lot, there is no limit to the size of that other than what can be created through setbacks on all of the size and the height. In cottage developments, those houses have much deeper restrictions. So we're really looking at RS8 as the primary district for people at home. They might not know what zoning districts they live in, but it's a single family district that allows for some additional density. And that is where you're going to see these types of proposals, because any of the districts that are already RM are going to have multifamily allowed in those districts already. And so I noted that there's an unlimited size allowance, except for what you have to do by setbacks on any side and height in there, and you're allowed to do an ADU. That's limited to 70% of the primary residence or 800 square feet. And with cottage clusters, you could not also do an ADU. You could do an accessory building, but you could not build an ADU as well. So in general, this proposal really, from the applicant, decreases just the minimum number of units. So I'll show you the difference here. I'm going to just go back and forth. So, and it takes away the buffer. This is the original right here. It takes away the 200-foot buffer that separates allowable cluster developments. So they could be closer together. They would just have to follow other lot standards, lot development standards. And it also takes away this thing called orientation towards the primary street. Staff notes that that orientation towards the primary street is something that we don't want to enforce anyways. These other things, the 200-foot buffer, that is something that if you were looking to promote affordable housing and additional infill development, that 200-foot buffer actually reduces your ability to do additional small housing. And so we are generally supportive of this petition. However, as much as we are recommending approval of this amendment because the benefit to create additional affordable housing through infill is pretty high, we note that there are potential negative impacts to this as well. And for us, it has already been noted that the biggest negative impact is that we haven't analyzed this as a community, and staff hasn't been able to analyze this in the context of other studies, whether that be the upcoming Missing Middle Housing Report, or even later an affordable housing plan, or any other opportunities to continue to update the UDO, which we will be looking at as an organization in the next year. However, if this is something that council wishes to pass to promote the creation of more housing choice and potential affordability, it is something that staff would definitely monitor over the next year. And we would be able to take a look at data and continue talking with neighborhoods about concerns and even re-amend this ordinance if need be. Lastly, I just wanted to point out that as discussed by the public or as presented to you by the public, council has received a lot of feedback about this and has generally been asked by several neighborhood groups to delay this item till January, similar to flag lots. So now I'll talk about flag lots. So flag lots are pretty much just a flag-shaped parcel of land, and they're developed they are created in that way to access land that does not have street frontage. Sometimes this happens after the fact. There might be a parcel that's not accessible, and people recombine parcels or re-subdivide parcels. Other times this happens because this is usually what happens, people are just subdividing a parcel to take advantage of the extra land to either build behind or in front of an existing house. So I think it's important to note that from just on the right-hand side, you can see what the shape of a flag lot looks like for everybody's benefit here. It's important to note from a staff perspective that there's nothing about flag lot development that speaks to affordability. So from staff's perspective, we are not looking at this the same way that we are looking at the cottage clusters proposal. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission, especially because there's an acknowledgement that we're in the middle of an affordable housing crisis, and that is partially built on the lack of general supply in the area. We're seeing 3,000 people move to Buncombe County every year, and there certainly is not the production of that many units to absorb them and the other people looking for a home. Planning and Zoning Commission, whose role it is to provide advice to City Council on whether or not they should approve this amendment, they voted 3-1 to recommend that City Council say yes. However, they did send it back to staff's technical review committee, and at that committee, staff came up with some additional considerations for which we thought that it would improve the public's interest if council were to consider adopting this amendment. So staff has been working with Mr. Bialik since that time to try to find middle ground, and he will be able to talk to you about how his application has changed. So he originally has applied to change the ordinance in a very specific way. It's all outlined in your memo. Things have changed so that what staff's alternative looks a lot more like what the applicant's alternative is currently. So staff is, again, acknowledging that Asheville does need additional housing production, but we went to City Council last Thursday and asked them specifically for direction on delaying this item, as we felt like that there are potential negative impacts to communities, especially communities of lower wealth, or and I say that because in order to subdivide a parcel, you need a certain amount of cash flow to understand, to hire people and to do that technical work. So for people who don't have that cash, they're not going to benefit from this. And then we would be able to have conversations about if there's a way to turn that issue around. Are there potentials for this to be a positive impact on a neighborhood where people who own a lot of land might be able to subdivide that land and find ways to build homes for their family, their friends, or homes that are affordable? But all of those things have yet to be analyzed by staff or discussed between staff and the community members. So again, what I'm looking for you all today is to have a conversation with the developer, ask questions. As the chair said, this is an opportunity for people to really understand what is being requested by the citizen petitioner. Staff is going to be here to answer some questions as well. But we are very interested moving forward on how to better engage communities on items like this. And so specifically in the memo that we sent for our staff report, we did ask, what information you would need, especially for flag lots, as it is a much more complicated proposal, to better understand the potential pros and cons to all of the neighborhoods in Asheville. That's the first thing. The second thing is whether or not there might be an opportunity to talk to a subcommittee or working group if you have them, or if there are particular neighborhoods that we should speak to between now and January regarding this item. I will let you know that staff has put out a request to the Legacy Neighborhood Coalition to meet with them before January, and we're in progress with that. And this says feedback will be considered by staff and may be shared with council. Any feedback you give is absolutely going to be shared with council. It might not be the entire page of comments, but it will be all of the highlights from any comments that you provide tonight, okay? So before I let you speak to Barry, do you have any specific questions for me? Yes.
You've mentioned a lot about how to keep the pricing low for cottage clusters, but you didn't really say how you were going to keep the pricing low. Like, I live in a house that sold 8 years ago for $100,000, and now it's worth, on paper, $550,000, and it's not a $550,000 house. Like, it's 100 years old and it's got a cracked foundation.
Yeah, so staff would absolutely acknowledge that neither of these proposals provide mechanisms to require that a certain percentage of these be made affordable. There is no combination of our affordability efforts with these proposals. However, by the nature of creating smaller homes, they would be, you would be creating potentially, with cottage clusters, more homes on a lot that may eventually reduce housing costs through supply. It is an indirect method. It is not a direct method of creating affordability. Okay?
Sorry, got one more question. What's to prevent somebody from building 5 ADUs on their property and then just turning them all into Airbnbs?
Well, that's not.
Oh, that's another conversation, and I'm going to get back to you with a lot of technical information on what's going on a state level with our short-term rental standards. So that is an important conversation, but as you know, we don't allow specific types of development and specific zoning districts, and so nothing is changing on that level at all. Yeah.
I was just going to add to that, as far as affordable housing is concerned, one of the big costs of housing is the property. And by having more units on a given lot, that inherently reduces the cost to the developer, which theoretically will be passed on to the ultimate purchaser. It's not required by any means. I mean, we're still in a supply and demand situation, but if you have more housing and each house costs less, ultimately will reduce the cost of the units.
Actually, I have several questions. How many people are on the Planning and Zoning Committee?
So I believe there are 7, and you may have noticed that only 4 people were present the night of that vote.
Yeah, so only 3 people voted to pass this on to City Council.
Yes.
In all of the city of Asheville, there were 3 people that.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So it also says that the application to allow additional opportunities, blah, 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 for the creation of new flag lots was sent to the city in May.
Mm-hmm.
In considering sort of some of the feedback in the past several years to the city council about not including people, affected communities in decision-making, between May and today, what was transpiring that was not brought before NAC, was not brought before neighborhood associations, who are going to be the ones impacted by both of these considerations? Can you speak to that at all?
So I can tell you that it is not required to bring it to any of those other groups, and staff regrets not doing that. Yeah. There are other things that happened. Our planning and urban design department merged during that time. We did not bring this petition to planning and zoning until August. Partially what was going on with staff was having conversations with the applicant to better understand what was being asked. Yeah.
And, I do, I do, this may seem strange. Part of what you were saying about the proposal with the following modifications, the first one is reducing the requirement of the width. I think what I'm understanding, if I'm reading this right, is the original proposal said reducing that flagpole portion as, AKA the access to that lot behind.
Yeah,
They
the skinny
originally
part.
wanted to reduce it to 5 feet, and you were saying with the modification of 12 feet, that would be more acceptable. Having lived in a house that was, as soon as I bought it, someone developed the lot behind me, what is the width of a crane, an excavator, and a dumpster that is used to build behind that? I imagine it's much more than 5, probably more than 12.
That's a great question, and obviously I don't know the exact width of a crane and excavator, but it is a great point. Vice Chair, yes.
To make sure that that they actually have
Yes.
enough. Because I also imagine that the Urban Forestry Commission would be involved in some way, because the removal of trees, even if you say a car can get down this to the back lot, but in order to build, we're gonna have to clear a 20-foot swath, which includes a lot of tree cover and other things.
There's a lot of considerations. These are all great questions that staff was struggling with during that time period that you brought up. Yes, thank you.
So I have, you have a question? I'll let them go before I speak, so go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, I just want to follow up on the Airbnb issue that Jake raised. One of the concerns in most homeowners is association is when you have investors who buy a property, come in as needing, a home, and somehow they qualify or send somebody and then turn around and rent it. So what some are doing is putting a limit on how long you have to live on the property before you can sell it, so as to avoid flipping of the property. So I don't know if that's something that you guys will take into consideration within the subdivision.
Yes, we have state laws that we have to follow regarding short-term rentals. And what I was alluding to before is that it's likely that the state could actually change those laws that, where our regulations for short-term rentals may actually go away next year. However, in the meantime, we're not allowed to have specific requirements other than what we require is a minimum 30-day rental period. We really allow homestays. It really is a difference between, so there really is a difference between how these units are constructed and occupied. We have full-time enforcement for these things. It is based on complaints. This is all complaint-based, but we're pretty limited. And I would like to send you all of you a follow-up memo that just shares what we've shared recently with council on what's going on with short-term rentals. I think that would be the best way to address it. We could even come back and have a conversation on this specific issue. And what I'm bringing up too is that this type of development is not necessarily impacting the short-term rental issue in one way or the other.
I'm talking about flipping, not just rental.
Yeah. We do not have the ability to regulate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody else have any questions before I say? The first thing, I would ask that you would take back to the city about exemptions from moving to the neighborhoods, the legacy neighborhoods, because what is happening into the legacy neighborhoods, which are the original African-American neighborhoods, really, they're small. And with these cottage clusters, you're opening up the door for all of this, and we don't have the space for travel, makes it more difficult. And we would, if you cannot stop it, the developers are coming into our neighborhoods because the property is cheaper. That's just, they're not going into Grove Park in North Asheville. They're not going up on Town Mountain Road. They're coming into these areas where property is cheaper and they can find these spots, and that's what they want to do. And so I want to kind of deal with the cottage clusters for right now, because I think that in neighborhoods that I've gone through, the small neighborhoods, even in Oakley, the roads are not that wide. And you start to put these cluster cottages in, that makes the traffic flow more. And that makes it not easy for the people that live in these areas to move. And I say that because I want to make it plain that the people that are making these suggestions on reduction of everything, they don't live where we live. And this is what we are, we're neighborhoods. So what we're talking about with neighborhoods, you don't live where a developer has come to do a flag lot. Those developers do not live in the areas. They don't see what we see or have what comes into our communities. And that's just every community. And I appreciate Ken, and we really want to work because we're neighborhoods. And that's what we're thinking about, neighborhoods. And this is what you've got. I think the only representation we don't have tonight is West Asheville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Other than that, you have the neighborhoods here. And we're telling you that in some of these neighborhoods where it's only residential neighborhoods, we need an exemption so the developers cannot keep coming in, buying up these pockets of land because you have condensed everything down. And these flag lots, they've already come into Shiloh. We have a situation already where, and ask them to look at this too, the city, where you have, they're so close together, and you don't have access if there's a fire. They're so close that if a house catches on fire, the other 2 or 3 houses are gonna be affected, and the fire hydrants are way down the street. So the city needs to start to think about what are you gonna do about getting some more fire hydrants close to these areas where you're trying to put these pockets in. But my main concern is for all of these neighborhoods that are concerned, that are small, they're just residents, where you find in these pockets, maybe the city can make them exempt, and meaning that you can't come in and do these cluster, these cottage clusters and these flag lots, because it's really not for our community. It's for the developers to come in, and that's what's going to happen. And we see that because we've seen it all along. That's what's happening. So I'm just asking that if you would go back, that is a concern, and about making us exempt. And then the third thing is that if there should be a proposal on the table that I know that you don't have to tell us about when these meetings are, but it would be nice if you would give a notification to all of these communities if planning and zoning is getting ready to have a meeting about the areas that affect them. Instead of, you say they're open, but you're saying you don't have to tell people, you don't have to go one by one and tell them this is what it's about. We would like to see that every neighborhood would have the opportunity to be in there in the planning process before it even gets this far, because as I look at this here, I'm looking at, you did have meetings in August about getting ready for this flag lots and all these things, but we're so behind the cluster. I'm just glad that everything went through, that the flag lots, was put on hold to January. But if we had known before then, especially with this group here and Can, we could have gotten together and we wouldn't even be talking about the cottage clusters that's on the ballot tomorrow, because that needs to be, and I'm just gonna say before I let him have it, we probably need to be at the city council meeting tomorrow to give public comment on what our thoughts about the cottage, because for what you're saying that they can build compared to if it was just a single houses, they can put a lot of houses, and even though they're smaller, and then you're putting them on our streets where you don't have any kind of leeway, and you're not moving, the streets are not wide enough. So I just ask that you do that.
Thank you so much. It's excellent input, and I will be sure to bring it back and relay it to City Council during our presentation tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just while Barry, are you planning to come up, Barry?
Barry, are you ready?
Yeah, I did bring, like, I have presentations we could put on if you want
If
to.
you just want to give a talk, she's let, yeah, we're gonna let you.
Okay.
I just
But we
need
have to ask
to,
questions.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Chair. I just need to remind our committee members, can you pull your microphones as close as possible? We've got a lot of folks watching tonight, and I got a message
So
that
they have to
everyone
hear
can't
you.
hear.
Something. They have to hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Barry Bialik, and it almost feels weird when I'm hear myself referred mostly to as a developer because I've been the chair of the city's Affordable Housing Committee for most of the past 7 years. I'm a current member of my HOA. I've been a past president of the HOA. I started the Thirsty Monks in town as a place for the community to come together to speak. I used to own community newspapers. And one of the biggest things, I'll say is, I think to your question, is I've run, there's only 2 UDO amendments brought by people in the past that have come through. One's the Cat Cafe, and one was the Cottage Amendment UDO change I made 6 years ago. And the process, I was begging. I've been begging since May to be in front of you, to be in front of PED. Staff would not let it. And it's really, really frustrating. And especially because, we wouldn't be here in a conversation like this if we'd been talking way in the beginning when this first applied to, because we could have worked this out. Because this is meant to be a collaborative piece of change. And, I grew up in affordable housing. Affordable housing is my personal passion, it's my passion mission. That's why I've chaired the committee. I've built 180 houses in town. Workforce housing, naturally occurring affordable housing. I have a current housing trust fund loan I applied for where I'm pretty much donating land that I've got at half cost and using a trust fund loan from the city to build true affordable housing that people who actually live off of housing choice vouchers will be able to use for mortgage payments. So I'm an incredible affordable housing advocate. And I'm also probably one of the city's largest missing middle developer. I build and specialize in small infill homes, developments, flag lots. And what I tried to do is come up with, as a builder for workforce housing and affordable housing, when I first started, I was able to help people find lots for $15,000, $20,000. I'd build them a house for $70,000. So I've built houses in the city of Asheville within the past 10 years that the whole thing was less than $100,000. There's one right across from New Belgium. It was a little greenhouse that was one of my first houses on Wyatt Street in kind of Shiloh area. I built one, but all over town, my goal was like helping people put the pieces together with the lower cost land, putting small footprint homes at work and creating housing. So that's kind of the why, and I think that's really important to understand. And so when I came up with these tools, and I've been through, having chaired committees and being part of, the city inner process for a long time, we have some process problems. And the reason the cost of land has skyrocketed, where building lots used to be $15,000, then $30,000, then $40,000. Now there's no lots in the city of Asheville for less than $135,000. And that means as much as I want to build efficiently and as cost efficient as possible, the loan, the house pretty much has to be for a loan about the land is 25% to 30% of the land value. So what I saw, and we started tracking this at AHAC, is that if land is going up to $125,000 now, that means next year's houses are no less than $500,000 or $600,000. And I had to say, what are all of the tricks? What is the hacks that I know? What are the changes? What are all the reasons I have to say no to people? And how can I help change them in a minor way, which I think these are minor, for how to open up more lots, which would bring the cost down. And I think that's, it's important to understand the why I'm doing this. And because I'm on the front line telling people no. No, I can't do an ADU for you because, you have a loan on your house, so you can't divide that and get a loan. ADUs are rich people's tools. and it shouldn't be. And the goal of what I'm doing is to try to make things like that more accessible by allowing people to have separate title and be able to put a separate loan for building on in the backyards if they choose to do so. Pretty much all of the things that I came up with these, the two UDO changes, the flag lots and the cottages, were based on things that already exist, that you already can do. The cottage development is, it used to be, we're asking to change for 200, was 1,200. I changed it to 200 6 years ago. But it's a tool that doesn't work. And it doesn't work because there's so many, laws in the city are written, there's a group of people that have the purpose of why they do things. Like they say, well, we're going to create this to create affordable housing. But then all of these little micromanaging rules get put into place, and then you can't use them. And so the flag lot how I got so involved, not the flag lot, the cottages, how I got so involved with it is I was going to develop a parcel for Mountain Housing. Mountain Housing reached out to me and said, what can we do together? We found them a piece of land it's been 7 years and nothing's happened with it because the process, there's so much that needs to happen to develop 5 or 6 lots, and the cost is huge. So I believe of the cottage developments, and the cottage developments have been in place for more than 10 years, I believe they've only been used 3 times ever. I think 3 times? I don't know if you know. Yeah, but 3 times. One is in Aurora. One is an example on Aurora, and that's an example that I brought as why I think changing it from 5 to 2 doesn't hurt, because the way the cottages are drafted, it's minimum of 5, maximum of 15. You basically plat it out, so you say these are where these houses are going to go, but you don't have to build them. So the example on Aurora, it was platted in 2010, and the picture shows where the houses would go, but but I think only 5 were built as of 2020. There's only 5 of those 11, I think, were built. So there's kind of I'm trying to tighten up the things that make things not workable, or why I have to say no to people. So that's where, with the cottages, I thought, okay, the littlest change is to take it down to 2. Because it just simplifies it. It's really easy to do something that's for 2 lots. The road access, the driveways. So I was trying to make it simple. My goal is not to create developer tools. My goal is trying to create tools that people can use, that people on their lots can use, and because that's who I deal with. I deal with the people asking me, what can I do in my backyard? How can I build something for my parents? My kids are moving back. How can I build something for them? So I've tried to come up with rules, take the rules, make the minor tweaks for how they can be workable for the people I have to say no to all the time. So that's where the cottage is. So the big change is reducing it to 2, making cottages, right now, cottages are meant to encourage dense clustering, but the rule says you can't have any 2 of them side by side. So that was the other portion I'd asked, to allow cottages to be no more than, a duplex, that 2 can be side by side. And then the orientation to the street is always staff, they don't know what to do with it. Every time I've brought one to it, which I've never developed a cottage development. I've run through applications of 2 full cycles, never been able to make it happen because the rules are so broken. So that's my goal of the cottages, is how to streamline the rules to make it accessible, that more people can use it to build a house or 2. Sorry.
Is that it?
And I'll just say on the flag lots, because I know that's been delayed. Where the flag lots came, there's nothing changing in the density that's allowed. Flag lots currently only work if you have a double-sized lot per zoning. Flag lots, as I'm proposing the change, only work if you have a double-sized lot. So it's not creating any more density. And in any RM, any multi-district, multifamily zoning, you're allowed to put 2 houses on a property. This just allows a way that you can separate it off for financing and ownership. And in RS zonings, you're allowed to put a house and you're allowed to put an ADU. The way the flag lot current, I think the compromise version that staff and I have worked out limits the size to 1,000 square foot footprint, 1,400 square foot total square footage, if it's on a flag lot in a single family zoning. So, I mean, that's kind of what I want to share. I have as much, technical data as needed, how to show, but I, really thought it's important to understand the why I'm here. It's like, this is meant to be a tool for the people, and the city has not made a zoning change to really help with affordable housing in 5 or 6 years. And it's a shame. And we don't really have and these are minor changes that can make a big difference, but then we have the ability, if the missing middle, once the missing middle happens, and we know from process, it's probably not going to be until the summer, until real changes come to council. They can change them, or they can fix them then, but we need some emergency fixes for housing for people.
One point that I was listening to your conversation,
Sure.
and I always have a problem, because I was raised in Asheville. This is my home. I know this place.
Sure.
I would never call it affordable housing now, in this day in crisis. It's fair housing.
Sure.
Because affordable, we have people that are middle income that have they have to have 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. So I have a problem with it being called affordable. We need some fair housing. That's number 2. That's one of the things that I have a concern about. And the next thing is, I think that people need to know that if you're gonna do flag lots, and if you have 2 parcels, and I understand you go back, how that is, but you have to go back and get it surveyed, which is, you're gonna have to spend about $5,000 just to get it surveyed, because it has to be lotted off. You cannot be on the same piece of property. It's got to be lotted off. A lot of people, especially in my neighborhood, even the property that I have, would not want to pay $5,000 to get it lotted off just for my mother-in-law or some other family member. So I think that probably that is something that I would not want to say. I don't know who you had talked to about people that were concerned about that, but that's just something that kind of, with me, that kind of just kind of sparks me and bothers me when I hear that, because I look at it like this. You're opening up the door for developers to come in for the land that we've had either for, and I think I was in a meeting earlier, and we talked about developers know how old you are, how long you've been in your house, what your house is worth, what you pay on taxes, if you're late on taxes. So developers are not here to help the people, and I can only speak for the people that I talk to, so I don't know about everybody else. But you talk about what you have developed and what you have over the course of years and what you have done. The city of Asheville does not have affordable housing. Houses in my neighborhood are running for $400,000 to $500,000. And so developers are coming in here. If you're a senior and you live in a house and you may want to get rid of that house, they'll take your land, because we're just now starting to tell our neighbors that it's not the house, it's the land. That's the most important thing. And I think that we need to, that's why I go back to the exemption law for some people, because now if you're saying, I can't divide my lot, if my son and his wife wants to move back, then I can't put a house on it without dividing it up and doing a survey, and that's a different lot. It can't be on my lot. Can't be on my same lot. I can't put, even if I wanted to do a tiny house. So I think that it's got to be some more research. And I understand, and I will say again, I will say, and I will continue to say this. If you live where we live, if you know how we feel with houses being this close to us, where you can hear them talk, you can hear them when they come up the driveway. So you have to understand how we feel. So if you want to make a difference in what we're doing and what you're doing, then you're going to have to find a better way to make us understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because when I've had calls to say, well, we've got 6,000 people that want to move to Asheville, do you want to sell your house? I said, well, where am I going to move to? I mean, that's just the logistics of it. And if I sell my house, I still can't afford to live in Buncombe County.
Sure.
So what I want to say is, I don't particularly care for the flag. I don't care for the flag lots at all, because they're just too close. Your kids have no place to play. You have nothing. It's just, You go into your house, you don't have, we're having a problem now on Caribou Road where houses were so close to the street that now one side of the street is full of cars, and then you coming down. So I want you to, if nothing else, to be conscious of these neighborhoods that you want to go into to build these flag lots and these cottage clusters, because it's not conducive to every neighborhood. So I do have somebody, and I don't know, it's not a public comment, but she's got a question. Can I do that? This here.
I guess, yeah, it's your meeting,
Okay.
Chair.
Sure. Yeah, Miss Sophie.
Yeah, I share this every time I get the mic. Just crowding people in, and, you know, maybe short term, and no, I know I won't be here to see it again, and it's not even another meeting here. However, my concern is we create these situations. You create Hillcrest. You put people in, and now then you're out. We got all these problems. And you try to do the same thing to our neighborhoods. Now we're packed in there. Now we can't even get out of there now. When I moved there 50 years ago, Tennessee Road was 2 lanes. Now it's 4 lanes, and you take your life in your hands trying to get out of coming up the street. I have to go a half a mile around to a light to get out of there safely. Now you're talking about bring more. I mean, it's just, we got to find some other places to start putting people and stop targeting the neighborhoods where it's because of the land is cheaper. I don't know what the real rationale is. But I will say that, and I'm going to say it every time I get an opportunity because nobody's listening.
Can I say, you know, I'm a fixer, right? And I know the UDO rules really well. I know zoning rules really well. And when, like, so I'll just say in Shiloh, because I did individual street studies. And that's what when I went to the neighborhood meetings, that's what I wanted to talk about. Like, I'll go through every street with you and show you how this will affect it. The Shiloh lots are not, there's fewer lots that are double size. So right away, the flag lots don't affect it as much. But one suggestion, as I've heard, because my mind's been stewing about this, because I've been asked about, well, can we exclude legacy neighborhoods? And I was like, it could, if it feels wrong to me. Like, when it was suggested to me by people, I'm like, it just feels wrong, because it almost feels like reverse redlining, because then it's saying you can't do this, but that other persons can. But one recommendation, like I could just think off the top of my head, is Shiloh. A lot of Shiloh zoning, I don't know how much you know about zoning, but it's called RS8. And RS8 is a dense zoning. It allows lots to go to 4,000 square feet. Maybe Shiloh should be rezoned to RS4. That way it wouldn't allow the same density because the lots are bigger. But RS8 is meant to be a dense zoning. So when the zoning was decided, which most of Shiloh was, it was given RS8, and that allows the dense zoning. If you upzoned it and made it all RS4, flag lots still work, but the lots have to be much bigger because the minimum lot size gets bigger. So it's just because I've felt wrong when I was asked about, well, what about if legacy neighborhoods get excluded? I'm like, well, I get that, but it feels icky to me, and that's kind of, and I was trying to think of other ways how to accomplish the same thing. And then, changing the zoning so the lots couldn't be as small would protect the character of the neighborhood the way you want it. The same way like a lot of East Asheville. More of East Asheville is zoned RS4. So flag lots aren't going to affect it as much because the lots are a larger minimum size. So, I mean, it's just a recommendation I might, from hearing what I'm hearing about the not wanting the density, then we should change, maybe the zoning can be adjusted so it's not that dense.
And I think that Ms. Kim Roney, our liaison for the city council, has a comment or a question.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. How are you?
How are you?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know about a procedural option you have, and I've seen this happen before, where you could open a formal public comment on an agenda item, even if it wouldn't normally have public comment. And that way, if anybody else was here to make comment on this issue, they could. I also know the Urban Forestry Commission, of which there are members here, made a recommendation to not make a recommendation on cottage, but to make a recommendation to wait on the flag lots while we're anticipating the missing middle. So if you were to open up public comment, you might hear some more options on what a recommendation could look like.
You talking about tonight or tomorrow?
Like right now, we had one public comment, but it wasn't in the mic, so we may not be able for people to
We
hear.
had public comment in the beginning.
Right,
So
right.
you want to open it up again if they want to have some comment?
It's up to
behind
you.
what- yeah,
I
okay.
think that you probably have more people in the room that want to make a comment, and you can't, that is an option. Normally, when you're doing that, you would be amending the agenda, and someone would move to open up public comment. Somebody seconds, and you vote, and then you have a public comment period on a matter.
I think we're
It's just an
still in
option.
public comment. We haven't gone on to item 5 yet. We're still in public
No,
comment.
we did, we moved, we changed. We had public comment and then we did new business instead of, that's what we've done.
So that way you can have it's an option that I've seen used before, just so that folks don't have to have been skipped.
So we would have to make a motion to,
That's the most formal way. Just make a motion a second to open comment, if you want.
okay. So I'm gonna ask if I get a motion.
I move that we open public comment on the new business that's been presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now it's time. If you have a public comment, it's open again.
I've got one more question for Barry.
Oh, you want Barry to
I've
speak
got a
again?
couple of questions.
Oh, Lord. What time is it?
So thank you for all the hard work you've done for affordable housing.
Thanks.
At the beginning of your speech, you'd mentioned that you've been prevented from coming in and speaking. We hold this meeting in public, and we've got public comment every meeting. Who's been restraining you?
True. I mean, I guess it could have been public comment. I've asked for the process to go to, like, we've asked to be on the PED committee, come to this committee, and then go to the Affordable Housing Committee. You know, we tried to do that before going to P&Z.
I'm just curious why you couldn't have come in.
I could have. No, I guess I could have come for public comment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure if you could answer this, or Steph, or someone, because I'm not very knowledgeable about the UDO and the lot sizes and things like that. But you mentioned something about not being allowed, something about duplexes, and that's a whole different process. You couldn't put them together. When you were talking about going from 5 to 2, and that
Right.
modification, and the rationales behind that, you were saying something, and I wasn't quite sure I followed it.
So cottages are generally cluster developments, right? Which means like the houses are really close together, and then the parking, sometimes the parking's not even in front of the door, like they're separate parking areas. I think it more just comes down to the cottage, the way the cottage development ordinance is worded. It's not usable, even when the projects that are trying to use it are trying to do affordable housing. So some of the ways I've suggested are all the barriers that have stopped it from being used to how do we make it more accessible? And I think that's what I was.
Okay, because that was something that occurred to me that I would at some point like some more information on, that might help other people understand the rationales and the options, is if it's, Dane, you even mentioned this, something about it's cheaper to build when you've got several, what did you call it, this resource?
Well, you have
Supplies.
more units on the same property, means that the total cost is going to be less.
Is there a difference in the affordable housing, or the cost if you do duplexes versus separate cottages?
Depending on the size of the lot, sometimes yes. I mean, sometimes it's less expensive, sometimes it's not. The reason why I'm proposing the 2 is anytime you get over 2 units on a property, the requirements for it can't use what's just called a shared driveway anymore, which is what flag lots generally use as a shared driveway. So as soon as standards get anything where a shared driveway is accessing more than 2 units, then it has to be designed to be 20 feet wide. It has to be paved. If it's a certain length, it needs fire truck turnaround. So actually what happens, sometimes the density increases the cost of the site work infrastructure so much that it makes the houses more expensive, because what you need to do to the land to build dense on is too expensive. So it works sometimes for making land more dense for housing, and sometimes it actually, for middle-sized projects, it sometimes is really hard.
So what I think you were saying was your intent or rationale for this was to try to find that middle ground between, or the tipping point, the price
Correct.
tipping point.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that how I'm
Yes.
understanding it?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And we were trying, what we were trying to, and what I think this, like the flag lots or the cottages, there should be, there should be a parallel affordable housing program to go along with each of them. Like there should be a way that a streamlined rebate is designed to go along with them. And that was part of the, it's part of the timing, the same, part of why the timing I was trying to get through is the next housing trust fund cycle, the housing trust fund cycles for helping with affordable housing move from rolling to like clustered. And on the last one, I think there's one coming up in December or January. And that's when people come and can offer creative affordable housing incentives, programs, down payments, rebates. And this would have been like having flag lots or cottages would be a great tool because flag lots are naturally occurring, less expensive lots. They just are because fewer people do want to live behind another house. So of the ones that are created now, which are I think about 20% of all minor subdivisions in the city are flag lots, and we've tracked them, and they're naturally less expensive lots because, they're behind a house. So they would be, the goal is to bring the cost down, and then with different affordable housing incentives, could maybe bring it down to where it truly could meet closer to the affordable standards. I totally agree with you that we do not have affordable housing in the city of Asheville. We barely have approachable, we barely have reasonable priced housing. And that's what it's what I'm passionately trying to do is create lots so we can build more small houses that are lesser cost.
Was there ever a consideration for a condo?
What's that?
I said, was there a consideration for condos?
So condos are yes and no. So actually, it's an interesting way of thinking, but essentially a cottage development is a condo of land.
Okay.
That's basically the best way to think it. You own, in a cottage development, what someone owns, the person owns a house, they own just the footprint of the house that's below it. So it's actually called in other places, it's called a condo plat. But the benefit of it is it's eligible for regular financing, where if you condo, there's more limited mortgages that are available for people, and they usually have higher down payments. So the condo plat, which is what the cottage development uses, there's another thing called the Planned Community Act uses. Essentially, it's condoization of land, but it's eligible for traditional financing products.
What is the consideration for these cottage clusters as far as the restructuring of water and plumbing? Because you're moving into these areas, it's going to impact the rest of the neighborhoods because it was undeveloped when you got those pockets of land.
Mm-hmm. To do any kind of development, whether it's one house or 5 houses, you've got to do the engineering, you've got to do the studies. If I'm doing anything with more than 3, then you apply, your engineers have to do the flow of what water is available. They has to make sure there's enough water available. And that's also, the infrastructure is a huge reason why our land costs so much. And we do have water line issues, as we all witnessed, last Christmas. And we also have severe sewer line shortages that we have a lot, like Oakley. There's so many places in Oakley that houses are connected to the sewer, but if anything happens and it breaks, they can't get back to it. We do have, we have a horrible infrastructure problem in town that our sewer lines are not up to snuff. Our water lines aren't always to snuff, and that's kind of where the whole idea of where denser zoning is made. Denser zoning is supposed to happen where there's better infrastructure, because you can't just make the sewer bigger everywhere, and you can't just extend all the water lines everywhere. So generally, what zoning is supposed to do, zoning is supposed to be denser around where there's better infrastructure.
Okay. So do we have any questions or any comments?
Well, I have a comment. So I've known of Barry for a long time. I know people who've used him have been very happy with him. I know somebody who's developing a flag lot right now in West Asheville. I totally 100% support what he's doing. He's one of the few people in town that's actually trying to get us more towards affordable housing. So I think both of these proposals have merit. My issue would be, I don't think that they should be considered independent of the missing middle proposal that's coming. Now, I do realize you have a good point there, Barry, that it takes a long time for these things to get through. I have experienced that myself. But ultimately, I think the outcome is generally better if you have opportunity for everybody to give input. And it's frustrating, but I think ultimately more people end up being satisfied. So I would propose that that we recommend that this be considered by the missing middle group and incorporated into their report. And, you know, whether they support it or not, I mean, it's up to them. But I think that it's kind of jumping the gun to say we need to do these things immediately. We probably should have done them 10 years ago. But I think we have an opportunity right now to get them into the missing middle report. And I mean, I personally would support them. I mean, there might be things that need to be included, you know, like the zoning thing you brought up. That could be part of it. But I do think both of these are good proposals.
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to disagree with you, but I am going to disagree with you because I think that the neighborhoods that are being affected have to have a voice, and that's what we're representing. And whenever I speak, if I say me or I live in a neighborhood that is starting to already be impacted, and I know how it feels. So it maybe look like a good idea, but I think that it needs to be set back because some more adjustments have to be made. We cannot fix them all, or we can't change them all. But this proposal here does not give the people in the neighborhoods the opportunity to actually know what's going on. And I say that because 15 years ago, we wouldn't be sitting here at this table having this discussion. That you would have already made decisions. It is getting better, but it still needs to be better than what we're looking at today, because none of this should be going as a proposal for anything without the neighborhoods being clear. And this is what we are, neighborhood association, the advisory committee. You have the neighborhood association, you have CAN here. All of these organizations need to get together before you can even say that we can propose to do anything, because we've been left in the dark. So, and I understand what you're saying.
And that's what the missing middle project
But we
is
can't
aiming to do.
we can't put them all in the same box because they're not all the same. Missing middle is different from, I think, the flag lots and the cottage clusters.
It's not. It's all part of the same thing. It has to do with land use and density. That's the two issues that are.
So what we need to do is, we cannot say to put them together tonight because the communities and the people that are involved have not had an opportunity to talk about it. So what you know, they don't know.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, that's what the Missing Middle Project is aiming to do, is to come up with proposals, and then there will be public hearings to talk about them and to see which things are going to be included and not included, and if there's needs to be additions, like the zoning thing that Barry mentioned, that will be part of the proposal.
So you're saying that all of this should be put back?
I'm saying it should all be part of the Missing Middle Project.
And so it shouldn't be now, but it should be something that should be later after discussions and things are put in place.
It should be part of the Missing Middle Project.
But that's not coming up tomorrow, right?
Well, I mean, we can only make a recommendation to City Council. I mean, they can vote it for it or against it.
But we can't do it now.
No, we can vote that we make a recommendation, and that's what I'm suggesting that we do. Is we have another question here.
Well, we had some people waiting.
Yeah, we got people there's somebody behind you that was before you.
Yeah.
Just hold on, Ms. Baines. Just a minute. Wait a minute. She was ahead of you. Yeah.
So if you, Ms. Norma?
Yeah, come up on the mic.
This is more action than NAC has seen ever. So thank you all for your excitement and.
Okay.
Just for everyone in the crowd, we did put the sign-up sheet back out. If you'd like to sign up for public comment, please put your name on the list.
Go ahead, see you already.
Again, my name is Norma Baines. I'm the liaison for the Shallow Community Association. And as I listen to the discussion that was being done, and I think about when, I think it was 1997 or 8, and when they the rezoning occurred and Shiloh became RS8, but nobody said RS8 was, you're gonna put 8 houses on an acre of land, which is not even feasible, right? You wouldn't put 8 houses on an acre of land. But since then, that is what everybody's trying to do in Shiloh. And we already have clusters. We have developers that have come in and taken one lot and put about 4 houses on it, and when it doesn't face the street, they turn it to the side and they do it. So we don't need any more clusters. We already have them. And I agree, Shiloh should be rezoned to RS4 and not RS8.
So why don't you propose that to city council?
Huh?
So why don't you propose that
I
to
am
city council?
proposing it now. If somebody want to take it to city council, that's fine. Because we should be RS4, not RS8, and we already have the clusters because of the setbacks that the city did. The city and the planning, I assume, set that in motion. So we already have clusters, so we don't need any more. Thank you.
So Dane, let me just say, and I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna be real. I'm just gonna be real, because I have to be. We have not known about these things. You're sitting in a room with us, and I'm gonna say, I don't know about everybody else in this room, but being an African-American woman and have been in this process, a lot of this stuff, it's just not coming to us. We have been behind. We have not been able to sit here and hear all of these things. So what you know, we didn't know. So it's not that, and Ms. Banks is speaking with passion because we did not know. When you said that why didn't you go to RS4? We didn't know what RS4 was. I'm just now learning RS8 in the last 7 or 8 years. So please, just kind of like, just be kind of cautious of saying that, you know, if we didn't go, we didn't do it because we didn't know. And that's all I'm saying, and we're gonna move on. Z, wake up. Yeah, you got to give your name and everything.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zakia Bell Rogers. Thank you so much for giving me this time to speak. This feels very concerning and feels like a repeat of history. Oftentimes, we hear about how our majority Black communities are taken advantage of, and that's what it feels like today with this cottage business. Affordable housing does not mean cheaper product. And that's what it feels like. It's like going out and slapping Legos together and say, okay, there's your affordable housing. And it feels like it could be dangerous. As someone said, if one of those houses catch on fire, that could be a tragedy for an entire area. So I would suggest, instead of trying to find a quick fix, find a real fix for the housing issue. It's not about affordable housing, it's about not only fair housing, but fair jobs, income, and being realistic. Asheville's not affordable. My husband and I bought our house in 2007, and today, if we were looking for a house to buy to be here in Asheville or even rent an apartment, we could not afford it. The rent is 2 times my mortgage for a 2-bedroom apartment. So we need to really get down to the bare bones of it and actually see what the issue is. And it's not slapping up cheaper housing that we can call affordable.
Did you have a comment? Did you have a question, somebody? Did you, come on, yeah.
I have a question.
Come on, you stand up and come on, come on.
So I'll say my name again. I'm Patrick Gilbert. This time I'm speaking as the chair of the Urban Forestry Commission. I know one of your members brought up the issue of losing trees, and Councilwoman Roney, who is also our council liaison, also brought up the Urban Forestry Commission position. So I just wanted to address that for those people who have concerns in that area. We did vote unanimously to urge the City Council to postpone action on the flag lot text amendments, mainly due to the fact that we really don't know what effect that will have on our urban forest canopy. We do know that the flag lot construction would not, that the tree canopy preservation ordinance, section 719, would not apply to the flag lot construction. However, there is a potential for opening up a lot of parcels for the construction on flag lots around the city of Asheville, should either Mr. Bialik's initial proposal go through or staff's recommendation. What we don't know is the effect that that would have on our urban tree canopy. I did ask staff if they could do a GIS study of all the available parcels and residential zoned districts in the city of Asheville and map out the tree canopy coverage from those lots. And currently, right now, the urban tree canopy coverage is about 44% for the city of Asheville. So take that percentage right there. The GIS study showed that of the available properties that could be built on in RS8 zoning districts there is 43% tree canopy coverage on those lots. So that's 43% of the 44% for the whole city. We just don't know how that would affect our urban tree canopy, as I said. So that should be part of the discussion when both the staff, City Council, and the Missing Middle Housing Advisory Committee take up these issues. As far as cottage clusters are concerned, we didn't take a position on that because technically the tree canopy preservation ordinance does apply to cottage cluster development. However, reducing the minimum number of dwelling units from 5 to 2 gets us in a bit of a sticky area because the tree canopy preservation ordinance does not apply to less than 3 dwelling units. So staff feels like that even if the number of dwelling units were reduced from 5 to 2, it would still be a cottage cluster development. The tree canopy preservation ordinance would apply. However, there is some doubt on that. So I just wanted to clarify that for the committee members. Thank you.
If there are no more questions, comments, I want to thank you all for coming. The presentation, we will do more collaboration with you.
Are we going to make a recommendation to council?
Not right now.
Well, I would like to make a proposal.
So right now, it looks like we may see a postponement of at least one of the two. And your advice and what you're able to bring to the table is so greatly appreciated. And obviously, we've had a robust conversation, which is great. So as far as logistics, you could make a recommendation to not make a position, which is what the urban forestry did about cottage clusters. You could make a recommendation that these be folded into the missing middle housing study, one or both of them, which will have engagement efforts around it. If you search Missing Middle Study Asheville, you'll see the city's website posted. It explains that we've already done the primary engagement back in August, but it also has a link where you can sign up to get more information as the Missing Middle Housing Study advances. You could also make, of course, a position. I hear that you have a recommendation here, but just to restate, the Urban Forestry Commission did a little bit of both. They made a recommendation to not take a position on cottage, but to make a position to fold the flag lots into the missing middle because of some of the questions, because of the opportunity for more engagement. So it's obviously up to y'all. If someone makes a motion in a second, then there would be a, call to question on the floor at some point. But just let me know if I can do anything to help. Oh, and lastly, I'll say, just because I know that it has been mildly stated, but the city of Asheville, including myself, did make a decision to not do the rolling housing trust fund. So it's because of a decision that we made to match up with the county's timeline that the concerns around housing affordability, we created that crunch. So that's just my perspective on why we're like saying, is it really about housing affordability? And that's why I'm hearing some of the urgency is like, it could be if we follow the timeline. Otherwise, it could be another year before we're talking about housing affordability on these lots. But that is, of course, on us to make decisions about as a community and as an organization.
Thank you. For just one last staff comment, I wanted to clarify, I said at the very beginning, that we will not have at council tomorrow night the flag lots amendment. So the only thing that's on the council agenda right now is cottage clusters. And then the second thing I wanted to do was thank you. You did exactly what we asked you to do tonight, which is to facilitate communication between neighborhoods and city staff. And this was one of the most robust discussions we've had on this item. I hope we can continue it. I'm going to leave you with the current cottage cluster ordinance so that you can take a look at that as the vice chair had been asking some questions.
Is this the same thing?
It is not. This is the cottage cluster. This is just the current cottage cluster ordinance, so you understand what is allowed.
I think it's the same one.
No, she said,
Oh, this one is for flag lots, that is for cottage.
this is for cottage clusters. Okay, so we do thank you all for coming. If you want to stay, this is open to the public, and we will continue on with our business. If we're only talking about cottage clusters tomorrow night, I don't think that we need to bring that up about a recommendation, do we? Because that's not coming, we have another meeting next month.
Well, I mean, they're gonna vote on it one way or another tomorrow. So if we're gonna make a recommendation, it has to be tonight.
But he's talking about putting the flag lots with the middle.
So all I'm saying is, it's on the agenda for tomorrow night for cottage clusters. If we're gonna make a recommendation, it has to be tonight, or we might as well just have wasted our whole time here. So if you wanna make a recommendation, then we can do so tonight. If not, then it's totally pointless.
I don't think it's ever a waste of our time to hear public comment and to get input on things that are affecting our neighborhoods.
But we can't make a recommendation to council unless we make a recommendation. I mean, that's how it works.
And what would be the recommendation, if you don't mind me
I'm
asking?
just,
What's that?
you want to make the recommendation?
I would like to propose something for NAC to consider.
Okay.
Given the robust nature and the action and discussion and interest that we have seen tonight, in addition to all the feedback we've gotten from other communities that we have been a part of at this point, it seems like it is not clear what the rationale is for the cottage clusters in terms of the benefit for several of the neighborhood representatives, and I would move that we do offer a recommendation to council to postpone the cottage cluster as well as the flag lot.
Flag lot's already gone.
Right.
Well, that would be my motion, is that we recommend that both of these be incorporated into the missing middle study, which will give plenty of opportunity for public input and to look at the tree commission and all the other aspects of this. And, you know, I hate to hold up Barry's proposal because I think it's a good proposal, but I think in order to get everybody's input on this, the best thing would be to consider it as part of the missing middle study. That's
So
my,
I've got a motion.
She got a motion on
I've
the
got a
floor.
motion.
Just her motion's on the floor. Do I get a second?
Second.
Any questions?
I do. I'm trying to understand what's the difference between your proposal and hers.
well, hers was a question. I have a motion.
She made a, she
Well,
made
I
a
was
motion.
moving that we make a recommendation to postpone the cottage cluster vote. I didn't say specifically the part that you added, which was to
Combine it,
align it
yeah.
with when the report comes out, which is also what another member of NAC who isn't able to be here, I don't know if y'all have seen the email from
I'm gonna read
Elise.
it, I'm gonna read it.
Basically the same thing, that because it is part of a larger common ground issue, that we wait for that report to come out, and we ask council to wait for that report to come out before both of these are considered. The cottage cluster specifically is the one.
Right, and all I'm saying is that I amend your proposal that we make it specifically part of the missing middle study.
Let me just read what, before we go any further, let me just read what Elise has. She works on a lot of, she's unable to be here tonight because she was sick, but she did leave her report. And it says, the report from the missing middle housing study is in draft. It has involved a lot of citizen focus groups, and the city paid a significant amount of funds for the expertise and recommendations of this consulting group. I feel it is prudent to wait for the recommendation in the forthcoming report to ensure these proposed amendments do not contradict those recommendations. From my involvement in one of their citizen focus groups, I've gathered that the report will include, alongside the missing middle housing report, being that they are all closely intertwined. The recommendation made in the final report might align with and support these proposed amendments, but I feel it would be best to wait for the report before we make the decision. That said, I do want to express appreciation for authors of the memorandum, Steph Dahl and Chris Collins, who recommended a number of worthy modifications to the original proposal. I also appreciate the valid concerns they have mentioned, chiefly that there have been little to no public engagement on the topic and has the ability to affect a large number of neighborhoods, especially legacy neighborhoods. Now,
And I'm agreeing with Elise. I'm saying Elise is right on, so.
She's stating that, from the information she's gathered, that the report will include recommendations
Right.
related to flag lots and cottage courts. So
Right.
if she's stating that, then
That's what-
there's
that's
no,
what she's saying.
there's no need to
But-
move forward with the
but we-
recommendation for it.
yeah, because the report has already come from,
They're still voting tomorrow night.
but that group will be already talking about this. They're gonna be there. This is what their recommendation is.
So do we
Am
not
I
want to
right?
make?
That's not my understanding of the report. The report's not coming out tomorrow night.
Right, no, but they're voting on the cottage cluster tomorrow night.
Hopefully I can be supportive just on process. So you have a motion and a second to make a recommendation to postpone, and you have amendment to postpone it to go along with the missing middle, but I haven't heard that it was accepted. If it has not been accepted,
Well, we have to vote. We haven't voted.
well, the amendment would have to be accepted.
The staff will have been able to look at zoning and overlays, where is it appropriate to do these things? They could say, yeah, we like the new cottage cluster thing, but we're going to limit it to this overlay on this part of town or that overlay on that part of town. That might solve the problem of it popping up in legacy neighborhoods. That's kind of how I know enough, and Patrick's been doing all this hard work on the missing middle housing thing, but they've been talking right from the beginning about when they would start. They wouldn't start everywhere in all of Asheville. They'd say, here's the place that's the best to do this. And that's where public input, you and my colleagues have already gone home from Shiloh, would be raising their hand saying, don't start with us, and here are the reasons why, and then you'd get those decisions to be made in a public forum, and not put the problem back on Sophie to figure out how to try to get themselves rezoned as RS4. So,
And I think Rick is absolutely correct. I mean, the city did the same thing with the hotels. I mean, rather than shutting down hotels entirely, which they did for 18 months, they came back and said, okay, we're going to have an overlay for small hotels, and we're going to have an overlay for large hotels. And then we're going to have an overlay where there are no hotels. And that was the result of 18 months' work, but I think it was, a workable solution to the problem of having hotels pop up just anywhere where they could possibly be. And I think that the process is already in place. So I'm just agreeing with Rick that this just needs to be considered once we see what the missing middle proposal is, How do these two proposals fit in with that?
The reason I did not mention the missing middle housing study is because I was trying to align the cottage clusters on the agenda with the same timeline as the flag lots. I am not that, it was trying to simplify it as much as possible. I don't know when the missing middle housing study will come out, but if we wait till then and it gets delayed 3 or 4 months, I just feel like between now and January 23rd, it gives us opportunity for more engagement with the neighborhoods, which is our focus, that we haven't had up to this point.
Well, we're not going to have more engagement between now and January because we have one more meeting this year, November, and then there's no meeting in December. And so the only opportunity for engagement is going to be between now and January 23rd.
I respectfully disagree, Dane, because one of the focuses of our NAC in the last 2 months since our retreat and our goals is that every member of NAC would go every month to at least one other neighborhood association. So regardless of how often we meet as NAC, we have opportunities all the time. And Christina Israel has been providing the placement or the information about neighborhood meetings. We need to be out there doing this work, not just waiting until our November 23rd.
But tonight is the first that we've heard of it.
Right, but I'm saying we do have 3 months. And there's a lot that can be done in 3 months as far as gathering information, in my opinion.
So I don't understand what you're proposing.
I'm proposing that we recommend to City Council to delay the cottage cluster
Until when?
until January 23rd, 24, which is when they have delayed the flag lots.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I mean, that's just basically the same thing I said.
Second.
Any more questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's what we do. That's it. And I'm going to ask that since it is 7:44, can we possibly hold some of this, the rest of our agenda?
Yeah, Emily will come back in November
Okay.
to talk about homelessness updates, and everything else we were going to work on tonight can wait as well.
Because this was very important. I really appreciate, I think the dialogue is good. You know, I think that if we continue with that dialogue, it's going to be even better because we have to get a great understanding of what's going on and our neighborhoods are suffering because they've never been invited to the table to know what was going on. So now there's an opportunity for us to know. And, you know, a lot of people that live in the outlying areas, not just right directly in the center of the city, that grew up here, it's like they feel like they're losing everything they've ever had. And so I think that let's just continue this. And if we could just get on that with planning and zoning can get to these organizations, these associations, and let them know when these are coming up. You know, they're open, but if they don't have an email to know it's specifically for a certain thing, they're not going to show up. They don't know, you know. But if they know this is what planning and zoning has got on their agenda, and we can get that out, and we can go with that before it gets to this point where we're sitting up saying we don't know. Okay.
For anybody watching, please remember that you can email public comments to Neighborhood Advisory Committee at publicinput.com or sign up to come in and speak during our monthly meetings.
We're always open. So I'm going to do my favorite. Meeting is adjourned.